Alrighty.
Mm.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Got people in all parts of the world this morning or today. So this is a new form of content, I guess, at least for my channels. I wanted to talk about Steiner, and read some of his work. I've been reading him for like 4-ish years, maybe 5. Uh, Probably 20 plus books, and I'm still always learning a lot. And I talk about him with people all the time, conversations, and try to share his work. Uh, and a lot of times they're like, where do I start? And there is so much, and I thought it'd be kind of good to try to boil it down and do these kind of discussions and readings and make it a little bit easier for people to learn some of the stuff that he was talking about. Um, and so that's what this is. R.L. Steiner is Rudolph Joseph Lawrence Steiner. A little bit of a play on R.L. Stein, who has the same initials and also has written a ton of books. Maybe the Steiner spirit itself is a book here, storyteller. We're using the platform of Discord, and I've got a couple friends. I'll just introduce them briefly in case you've never seen this channel or show or anything. But they're good friends of mine. They've done some of the other shows. So I'm sure a lot of you know them already. But we've got 13th Monkey.
Hello.
He hails from the Netherlands. Yeah, I don't know. Want to tell us a little bit about maybe you and Steiner?
Relatively new. I was introduced to Steiner pretty much by you and Barry, I guess.
No.
And I've always been a pretty crappy reader full screen. So giving me all kinds of books, usually not the way to go, but I've had some very interesting experiences on substances. Let's keep it nice.
Yeah.
That that brought some kind of enlightenment that aligns a lot with what Steiner is saying.
Yeah.
So every time you pass along like something that Steiner said, I'm like, oh, that's very recognizable. Been there, seen that.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's my sort of like, it's not a real connection more than a recognition. Pretty much every time he's mentioned or I read something about him.
Right. Yeah. He's got a lot. He's got a lot of material. It's hard.
Hmm.
I still have whole subjects I haven't dove into of his. Yeah. Um. Anthony is I believe New Zealand. aka Oracle Raven. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I have a friend who sent his son to a Steiner school, so he said the school was very good and very good for his son. And every now and then throughout the years, the Steiner has come across me rather than me coming across Steiner. Very much similar to Mike in that regards, but I found it quite interesting, so I'm quite pleased that you're enlightening us a little bit.
Well, I I feel like for me, because I've read a lot of stuff and I went from like one like set of ideas to another and like tried many different I don't know, I guess you could call philosophies, but even especially just coming from sort of a psychedelic background and well, art and psychedelic background, trying to find answers with that. And it's like, then you start reading Steiner's work and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can see this, or I can, I like to describe it more like just being able to build a better picture of sort of your life, right? Because you sort of have to start there. And with I will in the future do an episode. I'd like to just do like a life and death, I guess, regarding Steiner, to I guess add some context. We do have a show called Delicious Divination where we do talk about Steiner quite a bit, so you're welcome to search for that if you want. And awesome, yeah. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time to this stuff with me. Let's switch over to the browser. So, like I said, I've wanted to do this show for a while. It's just been time, and the world is pretty crazy. So, I found a really great site who has some really nice articles. I believe his name is Jeremy Smith, and the site is anthropopper.com. Doesn't seem to be active lately, and the article is actually from 2015, so it's there's sort of this timelessness that I think I really first recognized with Steiner's work, but and I guess to see this blog article in 2015, and it's like it still resonates even through another filter of this guy reading several works on what's called the backward angels, or you could say angles. And I also have an article that I'd like to talk a little bit about. Maybe we can start here. I don't know. This is an actual article called "The Fall of the Spirits of Darkness," and it is the influence of the backward angels lecture. So this is from 1917, so 100 I mean, it's over a century years old. That's incredible. And anyways, and let me think here. So Mike, I think you said you read this article and a little bit of this one, right? Or a little bit of the Steiner one and
Yeah.
the other one twice. So, okay. I feel like we'll start with the Anthropopper here because I think it gives some context, and I'm also so Steiner was like super involved in the art scene. He like loved going to galleries and did a lot of his own art. And this I thought was pretty wild. This is the head of Lucifer that he sculpted. So, I guess if you're new to Steiner too, we should distinguish when he talks about evil, I guess, there's sort of two kinds of evils, and that is the Ahriman and the Lucifer. And I'm just going to read some of these notes that I have to sort of encapsulate this. And we'll start with Lucifer. Lucifer encourages the tendency in human beings towards expansiveness, inflation, egotism, sensuality, passion, and ungrounded spirituality. Lucifer is the being who tells us that we are like the gods, knowing both good and evil, whereas Ahriman tells us there is no God and that material reality is the only reality. And I kind of described it originally, I guess, as Ahriman is like the technical god, or like it's kind of like the box maker, if you will. It's always trying to make a box, and a box can be a cube or it can be a rectangle. Um, both are proportion. And when we look at that golden ratio, that I believe that the outer, those box, the lines are sort of what represent Ahriman, and then the curve is Lucifer. So it's it ties into geometry a lot, which I think we should. Uh, that can be like its own episode. Um, and here's a really great sculpture that Steiner did as well. Oh, it's so tiny. Um, and it is Lucifer is above right here, which if you have watched the anime Devilman or read the manga Devilman, it's kind of hilarious. That's the exact depiction of the Lucifer character. And then you have Christ here in the middle, and down below would be Ahriman. And so he made this with a sculptor named Edith Marion, and it's called The Representative of Man. You can see it in the Goetheanum at Dornach. Lucifer appeals above all to our pride and ambition, making us think that we have no limitations. Yet he is also the being who set us out on our evolutionary path to freedom. But Lucifer does not want us to be truly conscious, nor to acquire an egohood independent of himself. And in our present age, Ahriman is a greater threat to us than Lucifer. He's infinitely clever and is helping us develop our technological civilization. He wishes us to advance at breakneck speed, long before our individuality and moral nature are ready for such advances. He wishes to foreshorten our development so that we can never reach our true goal, but only a false goal of enjoyment and endless material possessions. The scientists, the technologists, and the inventors are Ahriman's natural prey, but all of us can fall victim to his temptations. Wherever there is egoism and love of power, entry is made easy for him.
This article as well sort of confirms the Trinity instead of the duality. Because it's
Yes.
Christ, the Ahriman, and Lucifer.
Right.
Whereas Christ is external, and Lucifer and Ahriman can be internal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right here. The cosmic triad.
Yeah.
Lucifer, Christ, and Ahriman. So, yeah, and one of his predictions is that, well, in esoteric history, the Lucifer had an incarnation as the Yellow Emperor who reigned in China in the 3rd millennium BC. Ahriman will incarnate as a counterpoint to the physical incarnation of Lucifer in the East, with the incarnation of Jesus Christ in Palestine 2,000 years ago as the balancing point between the two. This is an interesting because you see online people talk about Christ is going to come back. It's like to get Ahriman instead is going to be oh no. Whoops. Okay, so he goes on. Let's see. Ahriman is the Lord of Death, and his will is to materialize human thinking into dead thinking to such an extent that the soul becomes fettered to the physical body and to an ever materialized earth, effectively cutting human beings off from their spiritual home as an Ahrimanic form of immortality. This is nothing less than spiritual death. This is totally, the transhumanism project.
Wants to live forever, right?
Yeah, which is
I don't want to
perfectly.
die. I don't want to die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the fear of death, but because of the incorporation of all of the technology, you become nothing less than technology. Spiritual death.
Yeah. Um yeah, it's let's keep going. Um his incarnation on the physical plane will intensify his influence, and many of us will fall into his clutches unknowingly because his effects work in the unconscious aspect of the human being. It will work in the human thinking through the etheric body, where the human being is not conscious. Um, this just makes me think of the any light emitting device is this is what this comes to mind, you know? Things you watch.
That's funny, huh? Light emitting device. LED.
You're right. um, though it is the wish of the good angels that we should reach our goal, it is not predestined that Ahriman will be defeated, because the goal can only be reached in freedom by us choosing to get there out of our own free will. That sounds weird. Um, uh, so as Steiner talks, when you get to like physiology aspect, the blood becomes super important, and that's where sort of Lucifer is like getting your blood flowing. That's that Luciferic energy. That's your um like your evil eye in a way. It's the eye for the self. But you also need that because the box of Ahriman would be, it's a balance between that in a geometrical sense. Um
Well, the
uh
box is science. Is science personified, right?
yeah,
This
it's a
is what it
thing
is.
you need,
There
but
can be no different. This is what it is. We put it in a box, and this is what it is. We can't change that anymore. That's science. It's putting everything in boxes. Everything is
right.
categorizable, organizable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Numbers, statistics, anything. The idea
Mhm.
of numbers is that they are effectively dead things. You're always anything involving that. But I think it's also you got to regard density. I don't get too sidetracked on that. Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Here's a picture of Steiner working on that sculpture. Look how big it is. It's massive. Yeah, this dude was incredible. So, let's see. So it gets interesting. We get into Michael, and I guess you would say the war in heaven, which started in 1840 and uh, was lost by the Ahrimanic powers in the autumn of 1879. Um, this part is super important. Especially because this is where this article kind of kicks in. And I think let's go ahead and read some of these just to get a little context on this. Um, the battle, and he's talking about the battle in heaven now. The battle, which began in the 1840s in the spiritual world lying immediately above our own, this was a metamorphosis of the battles which are always given the ancient symbol of the battle fought by Saint Michael against the dragon. I told you that this battle continued until November 1879, and after this, Michael gained the victory, and the dragon, that is the Ahrimanic powers, were cast down into the human sphere. Where are they now? Now consider this carefully. The powers from the school of Ahriman, which fought a decisive battle in the spiritual world between 1841 and 1879, were cast down in the human realm in 1879. Since then, their fortress, their field of activity, is in the thinking, the inner responses, and the will impulses of human beings. And this is specifically the case in the epoch in which we are now are. you must realize that infinitely many of the thoughts in human minds today are full of Ahrimanic powers, as are their will impulses and inner responses. Events like these, which play between the spiritual and the physical worlds, are part of the great scheme of things. They are concrete facts which have to be reckoned with. What good is it to get bogged down in abstractions over and over again, and to say something as abstract as human beings must fight Ahriman? Such an abstract formula will get us nowhere. At the present time, some people will have not the least idea of the fact that they are in an atmosphere full of spirits. This is something which has to be considered in all its significance. So,
Just
um,
like,
it's
I'm not going
basically,
into that right now.
um, I love that. I mean, that's psychedelics to a
Yeah.
T. So, and I think too, it's there's probably, if we look at the history that's conveyed through Steiner, it's not hard to see that the ability just to sort of have psychedelic vision is probably possible without the substances, because uh,
Oh yeah,
you have portions of them in your system already.
that's
um,
it. That's it, right? You already have all of the goodies in there.
yeah, I think it's,
You don't need the drugs. That like this is a quote by the singer of Tool, Maynard James Keenan. The trick is to use the drugs once and then spend the next decade or so trying to get there again naturally.
right. Yeah.
Because you can. I mean, like monks and stuff can attain these states without using any drugs. It just takes a lot more dedication.
Well, yeah, so it would, it's partially going to be the culture, right? You need a culture that's not stressed, right? To be in those positions, and we need the culture of beings to also, I guess you could say, find value in being able to do that. Uh, yeah.
But that's a tilting point you need to get across. And considering this article was written 106 years ago, it's got no better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, there's nothing wrong with I would say McKenna would say something like, the sacrifice of for instance, like mushrooms, right? Sort of you're eating the fruiting body of it, and you gain, you can, depending on which ones, you can gain certain types of knowledge. You also gain, like, they have tons of health benefits by regular consumption. So, uh, if it's also just broadening your spectrum of senses and stuff, then this line of at the present time, some people have not the least idea of the fact that they're in an atmosphere full of spirits.
Yeah, that's what
That's
I
so
wanted to mention.
powerful.
Like,
So powerful.
talking to people who actually educate on a Steiner school, and you mention the ether, and they look at you blank staringly. What?
Right. Well, they'll at
That
least
that that, that
they'll
just
learn.
that's an indication of like these people are actually educating on a Steiner school, and they don't take any of that stuff into account. So they're not teaching it to their students either.
Yeah. Well, there's probably some aspects. I mean, if you compare a non-traditional school, uh, Waldorf or Montessori or whatever, with, for instance, public schools, uh,
Oh yeah,
for
yeah,
sure they're gaining
for sure, I
some
agree.
advantages. But anyway,
But yeah,
let's keep going. I'm gonna keep with this is Rudolf Steiner. So 100 years ago, um, suppose a handful of people who have naturally come together and become friends know of the spiritual situation I have described, and of other similar ones, whilst many other people do not know of them. You can be sure that if this hypothetical group of people were to decide to use the power they are able to gain from such knowledge for a particular purpose, the group and its followers, cult, reader aside, a cult, through these would tend to be unaware of this, would be extremely powerful compared to people who have no idea of this and do not want to
Yeah,
know of such things.
100%. And two ways as well. Like that's another thing that comes across in the other article that you're reading through. It's like doesn't really matter that thousands of people are fast asleep. If as long as you're awake, as long as you're actively working on making this a better world,
Yeah, exactly.
your power is amplified by many times if you're actively engaged in it.
Yeah, of course. Yes. No, I think that's probably how it was. It's probably how it's gonna be again.
Yeah.
Precisely such a group existed in the 18th century and still continues today. A certain group of people knew of the facts of which I have spoken. They knew that the events I have described as happening in the 19th and on the 20th century would happen. In the 18th century, this group decided to pursue certain aims which were in their own interests and to work towards certain impulses. This was done quite systematically. At this point, too, in this article, he's talking about the press. Um, he's
It's not
talking.
just the press, from my feeling. Like if you look at this would be extremely powerful compared to people who have no idea of this. And just look at the distribution of wealth in the world today. That's not just the press.
Hmm.
And all of these people, like if you look at just very quick sort of sidetrack, if you look at people following conspiracies, it's all like, oh, all of these elites, they worship the devil. Ah,
Yeah. Who
that's what we're
knows?
sort of getting at here. They're not worshiping the devil. They have knowledge that other people choose not to be part of, and they can magnify that intent
Hmm.
just like we do by doing good.
Right. Or as McKenna would say, make art,
Yeah,
channel, and create things of
art
your
is
own.
imagination. Imagination creates the world, and they
Yeah.
those that ought not be in power want the world in their shape and form, like eat the bugs, don't have any money, don't have any freedom, nothing. That's the reality they want to protect, not protect, project at you.
Hmm.
Up to us to create another one.
Yeah. Exactly. And so he goes on a little bit more about. Essentially, he's talking right in this part of the article about a book that was, I guess you could say, I don't know, just kind of uh, ignored by the press or never discussed. And he says that everyone read the book. I don't know. Uh, in general, he's trying to talk about how the press manipulates information and how this is sort of an Ahrimanic principle or an Ahrimanic um, way of doing things, right? Um,
Mm.
so things are going on in the world which many people fail to see clearly. Uh, I'm just gonna skip down. The Ahrimanic spirit was, of course, called the devil then, and it was shown how the devil principle comes to expression in different ways in individual animal species. Uh, or it was important that the idea that animals were devils should exist in many minds by the time Darwinism came along, and the idea would then arise in many 19th century minds that people had gradually evolved from animals. At the same time, large numbers of other people had the idea that animals were devils. A strange accord was thus produced. As this really happened, it was perfectly real. People write histories about all kinds of things, but the forces which are really at work are not to be found in them. And then he continues a bit more. Today, and this is that timelessness I'm talking about. Like it's only 100 years ago, but uh, today people will like generalities better than most other things, and they easily fail to notice that since 1879, our demonic powers have been forced to descend from the spiritual world into the human realm. This is a fact. They had to penetrate human intellectuality, human thinking, responses, and perceptions, and we will not find the right attitude to those powers by simply using the abstract formula. Those powers must be fought. Well, what are people doing to fight them? Uh, we, I'm just kind of skipping to my note. We must live with them. They exist and cannot close our eyes to them, for they will be more powerful than ever if we do this. This is indeed the point. The Ahrimanic powers, which have taken a hold of the human intellect, become extremely powerful if we do not want to know them or learn about them.
100%. It's the ignorance. Ignorance might be bliss, but there's two sides to that tale, right?
Yeah, I think especially with the internet and or even just Steiner books. I mean, these are 100 years old. Uh, he published several in his quite a few in his own lifetime and tons of lectures, all this stuff, and you know being able to describe stuff in ways that you can sort of build better pictures is yeah.
Like if you're given the tools, like you just said, your first mention of the internet, we're given a tool, and it's becoming less so because of all of the censorship. But you're given a tool that like allows you access to so much knowledge. And what do we do with it? We watch fail army videos. Hooray!
Well, I'll tell you what, it's pretty nuts now because you can use the chat GPT and write programs. I've been practicing with it. I'm sure if you are watching the stream, you're actually seeing a script I used chat GPT to help me write. And it's like, okay, now scale this to lots and lots of money and time and resources. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're talking like Neon Genesis neural networks, probably looking at large scale information. And that's your competition if you, So it's kind of crazy. And that's totally Ahrimanic. Which that leads us into Michael or Michael. Funny because they hang out on a server with what? How many Michaels is there? 5 or 6 of
Yeah,
you?
I'm just... It's a fairly popular name. It might have some reason. Like if the translations of the syllables mi, sha, el is am like God, the closest representation of archangel.
Wait, what was it again?
Mi, sha, el, am like God, is like God, is the meaning of that.
That's interesting. That reminds me of what's his name? Lions talks about Israel.
Yeah.
Is an intriguing question.
Many names have many meanings actually. You can pretty much take any word and put it into an etymology search and pick the word apart. The really good ones go really deep.
Hmm. All right. So here's what I'm gonna take a quick little break. We're gonna just I'm gonna go offline for a couple minutes, a little intermission. So if you guys want to grab a drink or water, and then we will be back in a couple minutes to talk about Michael thing.
Excellent.
BRB. Alrighty.
All right.
All right. We are back. So, so the dragon, Ahriman, loses the battle in heaven, 1879, and descends into the human realm. The dragon symbology is pretty powerful. I think we need. Well, I will mention this because it is funny and recent. There's a movie called Die Nibelungen. It is
Die Nibelungen.
Nibelungen. Got it. Um, they're from 1924. I just watched the second one, sequel. Very intriguing. Uh, for 100 years ago. I also wonder if Steiner might have seen this movie. This was right a year before he passed away. But anyway, in this movie, he does kill a dragon, and I was gonna say we could watch the clip, but it's pretty long. Um, we'll skip ahead a little bit. Oh, all right, never mind. You can watch it on YouTube. Check it out. Called The Nibelung. It's by Fritz Lang and Thea von Harbo. And it follows the Michael archetype of slaying the dragon. Rudolf Steiner often spoke about the great battle that occurred in the spiritual world between the spirits who are followers of Michael, the guardian of the cosmic intelligence, and certain Ahrimanic powers. According to him, the latest battle commenced around 1840 and was lost by the Ahrimanic powers in the autumn of 1879. We know that in 1879, these Ahrimanic powers, or spirits of darkness, were cast down into the physical world, and a picture of this can be found in the Revelation of St. John, the angel holding the key to the bottomless pit in which he is said to imprison the dragon. Perhaps the tragic history of the 20th century is not so much the result of human folly, but rather of these powers being shut out of the spiritual world and thus rampaging through the physical world, influencing the likes of Mao, Stalin, Hitler, and Pol Pot, and many other human agents. The foremost of the Archai is known to us as Michael. An Archai, I think, is considered the Archangel. It was his task to go on to become the guardian or administrator, one might say, of the cosmic intelligence. He is known in anthroposophy as the son of the divine Sophia, who is the foremost being of the hierarchy of the spirits of wisdoms, the Kyriotates, and whose task it is to gather up, regulate, and harmonize the cosmic intelligence. What is the cosmic intelligence? There are many ways of describing the cosmic intelligence. One such way is that it is gathering up of all the conversations had by the hierarchies amongst themselves, their interrelationships regarding their knowledge and understanding pertaining to the being of Christ, the second Logos who descended to earth and died at Golgotha. One could also call it the essence of the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is mediating substance. I don't want to go on a tangent on that right now. So let's see. Yeah, I should keep part because about cosmic intelligence. Rudolf Steiner tells us that around the time of the mystery of Golgotha, Michael began sacrificing his rulership of the cosmic intelligence to human beings. And it is the third hierarchy which is the closest to humanity, insofar as it shares various soul and bodily sheaths sheaths with human beings that has the task of helping us to take up the cosmic intelligence in the way intended by Michael. We humans have the unique privilege of free will, so we have a choice. Quote Steiner, two things are possible for mankind, and through this possibility, our freedom is guaranteed. To turn to Christ consciously, or to wish to feel our severance from spirit existence, thus fall in the direction taken by the Ahrimanic powers. Humanity has been in this situation since the beginning of the 15th century. I don't know, what would that be? What was 15th century, like, notable history?
1600s.
Oh.
With the Middle Ages.
Oh. Typewriters, maybe?
No, that's still writing with a feather. 1600s.
Okay, cool.
Another thing Anthony brings up plenty of times, rightly so, is human was a distinction given to us fairly recently, and it means monster.
Could be, I don't know. Yeah, this is an image of Michael. Weird looking dragon. That looks like the Flash. Oh, it's Loki. It's got the horn. Very cool. Reminds me of. So the classical image of Michael depicts him in battle with a dragon and shows him standing on the dragon and spearing it in the mouth. One way of interpreting this might be to say that what Michael is doing is showing us how to penetrate the dragon of materialism, spiritual vision, right, so that the spirit coiled up in matter can be released. But Michael also sees how the danger of humanity succumbing to the Ahrimanic powers grows greater and greater. He knows that as regards himself, he will always have Ahriman under his feet. But will that always be the case with human beings? And herein lies our great danger. Ahrimanic spirits seek to smother human beings' awareness of their own spirituality. They want to teach people that they are really only a perfectly developed animal. Ahriman, says Steiner, is in truth the great teacher of materialistic Darwinism. He also teaches all the technological and practical activity in Earth evolution, where nothing is considered valid unless it can be perceived by the senses. His desire for us is that we should have widespread technology, plenty of material goods, entertainment media, all sorts of toys and gadgets. The aim being to kill and obscure any awareness we may have that we are in image of the Godhead. This is the aim of Ahrimanic spirits, and they're seeking to achieve sophisticated. Oh, my bad. This is the aim Ahrimanic spirits are seeking to achieve by sophisticated scientific in our age. I feel like we're still definitely not worse.
It's still there, right? Like I said, you can't talk about the ether. The creatures in the ether? What's that? No, oh no, the ether doesn't exist. The creatures in the fire? No, fire is just a thing that burns. Okay. Ah, well, whatever you say.
Well, so what if Ahriman succeeds? Well, let's see. You may recall from part 2 that Steiner said that the angels have particular work to do in inserting 3 impulses into our astral bodies. Remember these 3 impulses. 1, that no human being should be able to enjoy the peace of happiness himself if others around him were unhappy. Collectivism
Yeah, no,
there.
we failed there.
collectivism. 2, that human beings be able to perceive the divine principle operating in every other human being. That's Christ, Spirit. I don't know, at some point Christ and the word Christ. Anyway, part 3, the human beings should be able to gain irrefutable insight into the reality of the spiritual world. Psychedelics. Anyways.
Yeah, if you don't start seeing leprechauns and get distracted by them.
So let's see. So Steiner was speaking in 1918, but he said that if human beings are not willing to turn to life in the spirit before the beginning of the 3rd millennium, i.e. in our present time, then the angels would need to work in a different way. That is, by withdrawing all their work from the astral body and taking it into the etheric body. But then, Steiner says, the human being would have no part in it, as it would have to be done when humans are asleep. As of course, when we are asleep, we leave behind our physical and etheric bodies in bed and take our astral body and individuality into the spiritual world.
100%.
This article where he talks about how you go to sleep with materialistic intentions on your mind before you go to sleep, that you won't gain access to the spiritual world. Okay.
No, we haven't gone there.
So Andy says, if this happens, the inevitable effect on human evolution would be threefold. First, something would be engendered in human bodies human beings could not discover in freedom. Second, danger would threaten from certain indistinctive perceptions connected with the mystery of birth and conception and with sexual life as a whole. Third, humanity will get to know specific powers which enable them to unleash some degree of mental control over machines, a development that will take the whole of technology along disastrous channels. The state of affairs, however, that will serve human egotism extremely well and please many people. Now, we're definitely pretty much there.
We're there. Oh yeah. First chips getting implanted into people's heads voluntarily. Oh, look at them being happy with their chip. Fuck off. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't know about you, but that sounds to me like things that are already happening. Let's take the second point about this effect on our sexuality. It's unusual for Steiner to say much about sex, but here he is clear. This is the Jeremy Smith article, by the way. He says that the effect on human evolution would be that certain instincts belonging to the sexual life and to the sexual nature would not come to conscious awareness away, but instead would become harmful. These instincts could not be more aberrations, but would enter into the social life, configuring it. Something would enter into the people's blood as a consequence of sexual life that would above all make people go against brotherliness on earth rather than develop brotherliness, and this would be a matter of instinct. Yeah. Seems like the last four is an attack on your blood. So
just look at not the last 4 years. Look at porn.
well, yeah.
Look at porn. It's so simple. It's harmful. That's not.
The reason it's free.
There you go.
um, let's see. So, all right, don't get too discouraged, folks. And Steiner hints at something even worse. He says that danger will come from certain angles, speak themselves, uh, oh, I'm sorry, who themselves would undergo a change. He says is something I cannot speak about, where it belongs to the higher secrets of initiation, which may not yet be disclosed. Uh, I mean, to me, he's just referring to like hive mind propaganda, mind control.
Yeah, but most of that stuff is part of higher secrets of initiation because most people are not at all aware of stuff like this.
Right.
Like the simple meaning of words, like television, programming,
Yeah.
channels.
Um.
I mean,
Well, I'll be honest too. I think what he's talking about too, especially when we think about the technology that exists currently, um, super things, things that are probably a bit more beyond think of as reality. I guess is the best way I could put it. Almost like psychedelics, except real and I think too what he's kind of talking about is like some ideas we don't want to propagate too fast,
yeah,
which is
that's yeah.
understandable. Because I don't know, I talk
It's
about
like
this
you
guy to
can't.
a lot of people, and I'm like, well, I feel like I've learned so much from him, and it helps solve so many puzzle pieces. Uh, Also, not like just put all your like, oh God, this, God that, God this, this. Like, you don't put all the weight on their shoulders. I mean, it's like you are supposed to do these things, and you don't want to do it. Well, it helps Ariman spirits work. Uh, Not saying go like riot or go protest stuff like that. It's just like
It's
I
that
think
balance thing again, right?
more of a yeah. It's a balancing a culture though that is seemingly imbalanceable.
Mm.
That's I guess where we uh that's where I guess you could say I want to find some more answers. I did acquire a Steiner book called The Social Future. I'm excited to read that because I think it may have some good societal answers, maybe.
If not predictions as to where we're going, or where we currently are, seeing as all of his stuff
Right.
is that much older.
Yeah.
Like he really like he writes like stuff 100 years ago, but um, he's pretty spot on as to what is happening currently. Like
Well,
he warns for this stuff coming like 100 years ago, and then like
right. Yeah. I feel like 100 years is not very long though.
in the greater scheme of things, no, but on a human existence, it is.
Yeah. Those. Yeah. Well. So with the tangent too much, but with the history, the
Yeah,
Steiner
yeah.
history, you're talking humans go back millions of years, and the culture was vastly larger. A million years ago. So it's like wow, like 100 years
Yep.
versus, and that could be sort of a not a literal numerical time frame, but
Ah, it's
very
also
fascinating.
somewhat harmonic in design, isn't it? time is putting numbers in a box. Like this lasts 100 years. What is 100 years?
Right. Right.
What is
Well,
a
I mean,
thousand years? What is a million
the
years?
last 4 years feels like 100 years.
Right?
uh, anyways, let's dive in a little more here. So I'm gonna continue Anthropopper. Uh, the pollution of the sexual nature. But nearly 100 years later, I think we'd say something about this. And to me, what may be happening now is very frightening. Let's go back to the War in Heaven, which started in about 1840 and was completed in 1889 with the victory of Michael over the Ahrimanic beings, who cleared out heaven and thrust into the abyss. Now, what does that mean? Be cast out of heaven and into the abyss. Where have they gone? There is a link between our blood and the etheric body. Our angels usually work in our blood and our heart. By 1840, a number of abnormal backward angels. Now, these are angels with the potential to be archangels, but who have not yet reached that stage. Uh, Wanted to leave the blood in order to enter into the nerves, the brain, where the normal archangels taking up their domain. I like this because it's it's really telling you that you're a part of it, and I like. Um, Let me think about it more. This created an obstruction, a hindrance to the flow of spiritual wisdom that was to enter into the astral body. Now a battle ensued, Michael and these retarded angels, the angels of darkness. To cut a long story short, the Ahrimanic angels were cast out of the nervous system into the realm of the blood again, into the abyss. By 1879, uh, they were thrust down into the etheric body by way of the blood, which is closely connected to the intellectuality and human thought. Here, in the realm of intellectual thinking, they found relief for their pain. These beings connected to Ahriman have inspired more and more intellectualism, materialism than there has ever been before, because they thrive on it. And by way of the intellect's relationship to the realm of Ahriman, they have connected the intellect with sub-earthly ethers, i.e., the realm of electricity, magnetism, and atomic forces. Whether we know it or not, our etheric bodies interpenetrate the ethers all the time. Uh, that's like we are talking about the being surrounded by spirits,
Like
psychedelics.
creatures of the ether, creatures of the fire.
Yeah. Let us recall that Michael had to surrender the cosmic intelligence so that the human ego could remember it, but this time in a free and personal way, and through inner work to reconnect this intelligence with Christ. Uh, the spirits of darkness living in the being and in the earth do not want this to happen. Followers of Ahriman, the antagonist of Christ, they are doing their level best to prevent us from rising up. They want to drag us down to the level of the electrical, the mechanical, and atomistic, the realm of Sorath, the sun demon. Uh, yeah, definitely be talking more. He often says that he will not talk about it.
Yeah, right.
Steiner says, in fact, it actually depends on human beings themselves, on their attitude, on the whole way their world of feeling is disposed to the spiritual world, whether they're angels accompanying them when they leave their physical and etheric bodies in sleep or not. If a person leaves his physical and etheric body in a materialistic mood, his angel would be denying his realm, his affiliation to the archangels, the archai, and the exousiae, if he were to accompany the human being. Okay, so there it is. You try to sleep with physical ideas. These days, it seems difficult not to. Um,
Mm.
you basically block your wider spectrum patient, uh, spiritual world. So, this distances us from our normal angels and draws us closer and closer to Ahrimanic angels, their offspring, Ahrimanic elemental beings. Our reproductive and sexual life is administered by the normal angels working in our blood. But for those human beings who cannot rise above materialism, not only will the dark angels take over the task of the spirits of light, but their angels, instead of rising to other tasks, may, due to the influence of these dark spirits, fall even deeper than the etheric body. What does this mean? Rudolf Steiner warns us we should not allow the Ahrimanic powers to gain the upper hand, as it were, and we should not fall in love with them. If this were to happen, human beings would thereby, quote, unite spiritual progress with material progress. This is what Rudolf Steiner cited prostitution with matter. uh, we are we're pretty close to that. Um, the union of angel and man in the etheric nature of the human being, where live or wait, where live not only the forces of life and death, dying and becoming, but also all the unconscious desires associated with sexual life. Life of the sensual results angel, quote unquote, falling in love with matter. Through the human being, which leads to an angel's downfall, one could call a suprahuman fall. The result is that something thereby enters the material world that does not belong there. Yeah, what are they? Plots. Saw some gross pictures of that. Disgusting. Things that are growing in bodies that shouldn't be there.
Mm.
Anyways, this corresponds to the second fall in the book of Revelation, where angels fall into the realm of the physical body and possess their human beings, so that together these and the backward angles and elemental spirits that belong to them become the hosts of Ahriman and ultimately the followers of the sun demon Sorath. Um, so when I think of Ahriman too, I often think of the concept of like a parasite or the Hydra. Um, Especially if you play Magic the Gathering, you know what a Hydra is. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, they have, I guess they are practically immortal. Uh, yeah, just research them yourself. It's gross.
It's 40K story all over again. It's funny.
Yeah.
Total different. Yeah.
So, if this is indeed happening, it will have huge ramifications on the future of humanity and the world. What might this lead to? Rudolf Steiner warned us that instead of a greater sense of brotherhood, the most evil sexual instincts would enter into the blood. This is surely what we are seeing today. Remember, this is a 2015 article. This
Mm-hmm.
disconnection from the moral life signifies a separation from the angelic hierarchies and a binding to the Ahrimanic mineral realm, causing an animalization of the human being. This in turn leads to a form of unconsciousness of the feelings of others and a kind of anti brotherhood sentiment, because the karmic ties that bind human beings are, in such cases, completely severed. ISIL, or the Islamic State, seems to be a direct manifestation of this phenomenon. Second, instead of humans having a vision of the Christ in other human beings, there will be an unconsciousness of Christ. In our time, the goal of many human beings is a sensual form of happiness without morality and material welfare unconnected with goodness. This end, certain drugs have been created to dull the mind and numb the feeling and to prevent any discomfort at immoral behavior. Other drugs create the right conditions in the etheric body that will lead to an animalization of the physical body. These steroids, vitamins, additives, mercury based things, GM foods, etc. Selflessness in the etheric body is turned to its opposite, a heightened form of egoism. This estrangement from the moral world order leads us away from the cosmic Christ and draws us closer to Sorath, antagonist. Is there anything we can do about this? Well, first of all, we can pray. um, Prayer is the most important deterrent against the forces of evil in the world today. One person working within the light is able to offset 1,000 working against it. Each one of us is asked daily to send our light to the spiritual hierarchy. Skip to 2. We can also try to wake up to what is going on and keep ourselves in. Some of what I've been. Oh, this is about him reading these Michael books. Yeah, like listen to our shows and self or just read some Steiner, please. I always recommend it. Amazing. Let's go to third. We need to ask the angels for the gifts mentioned in the college imagination. That is unity, courage, wisdom, and the light, which is love for one another. So brotherliness. I think these are all good. Does also give us some tips in article from 1917. Let me tell you a most important law of the universe. You merely consider the world as it presents itself to the senses, which is the modern scientific approach. You observe past laws, which are still continuing. You are really only observing the corpse of a past world. Science is looking at life that has died. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arimon, man, it's we just discussed on Divinations. I was reading the book, a Steiner collection called The Book of Revelation and the Work of the Priest, and does a conference where he speaks to a group of priests, I believe Catholic priests, and basically says that Ahriman is what they call Satan. I found that connection kind of useful. I guess it's the god of many names, perhaps. It's also known as Mephistopheles, but different from Lucifer, and then Sorath, which I personally think that might ball of light, but I don't know.
Mephistopheles is the Lord of Death, right?
Yes, well, that's all the same guy.
Is it though? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I think there's probably hierarchies, all part of it.
Yeah, that's what I think. Like going back to that, like giving names to things from the ether and the fire. Something we don't really do all that often.
So, let's see. I'll do is take a break here, 3-ish minutes, and come back. And I think we'll dive into the rest of the Rudolf Steiner 1917 and go from the questions if you have them, and
All right.
be right back.
My apologies. I'm going to have to leave. I've found it very fascinating, and I haven't had much input because I've been thinking too much about everything that's being said. Thank you very much.
Problem. You.
You have a great day, and
See ya.
Take care, Anthony. All right, we'll be right back, folks. All right.
All right.
Ah, feel refreshed. I don't know about. Um, you know, I will say that I do feel, you know, the thing Steiner is essentially proposing is that we can lose the battle of our free will. And
Hmm.
I think I wanted to say this earlier is that the hierarchy, especially shown with his art, the representation of man, um, where I feel like Lucifer, you've been taught to like hate Lucifer, the idea of Lucifer. It's like if Lucifer is the light above, Christ is sort of the human being, super being in a way, right? Then Ariman is sort of the multi-headed Hydra, whatever devil, Satan, whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it. The maybe the demiurge. I'm not sure if that's the correct term or if that is the same thing. But that hierarchy is interesting because I feel like you're culturally taught to be like, yes, Christ, 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 but then God, and I feel like this lets people slip into atheism thing, um, where it's just like, well, I can't see it, I don't know, and also the mono God I feel is pretty tough, I guess, I would say it's so non-human, so vast that it's hard to like you're a derivative inside derivatives. So,
Mm.
it's so massive and out of scale where the word God is just like it's like a gate, You're just using that. So it's easy to become like atheistic about things. Like I just don't believe in it. True when we see like the I guess you could call it the dogmatic ideals of organized religions, or just cults. Um,
Yeah,
they
but they have the materialistic on the mind as well because they want more money.
I don't know. With cults, I think it's different. I think it's pure power. I don't think they're
Oh, not cults, organized religion, I meant.
right. Well, I mean, it's still power for
Hmm.
power. I mean, I think there's probably a whole discussion of the societal stuff. But I feel like you're taught, to make Christ or the Lord or any of these things to make them like they're evil when in fact it's more like the curve, the spiral, right? It's just it just does its thing, just like Ahriman in a way kind of just does its thing. So uh they're kind of systems within the god, right? So if that
Yeah.
makes any
Yeah,
sense.
that's what I mentioned earlier with the Trinity, right? It's not a dualism, it's a Trinity.
Yeah,
But
right.
everything educates us toward, well, not everything, but a lot of stuff educates us towards the dualism and not
Correct. Well,
the
yeah.
Trinity.
Yep. Yeah, I
It's
think
also
when
the
you
Trinity of the, what is it, mind, body, and spirit.
yeah. Yeah, three, I mean, what's the saying? If a master mason, he would be master the rule of three. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the there's some magic for you. Have
30,
fun with that one. Uh,
33rd degree is also a third division.
yes, yeah. Uh, Future episode for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually go ahead and read the
Yeah, go
Temple
ahead.
Legend book again because it's so good and it'd be good to share with people. Uh, Anyways, I was trying to think. I don't really feel inclined like to touch the article again. Instead, I was going to read from the Book of Revelation and the Work of the Priest. It's kind of the end of his 18th lecture, which is actually the last one. And it's not really spoilers or anything. it's just a good, like, I guess a couple answers to, in a way, we are sort of battling Ariman because the technological tyrantism that's kind of being propagated is probably going to be problematic, and the neural network
Well, yeah.
stuff is enabling technology to voting every 4 years is not going to uh
You
you
put your
don't have
cross
four
in the
years
box.
anymore to wait for things, so
Hey, you put your little cross in a box. Everything in a box. The incorporation with technology is all harmonic. It's exactly like you said. We could well lose this battle as
yeah,
such.
right.
I think it's it could it I really think it's a flick of the wrist type of thing. If enough people start realizing what they're actually in,
Yeah.
it instantly changes too.
Yeah,
Possibly without like even any awareness of the participants. I think
right.
that's the Mandela
Well,
effect.
yeah, that would be really funny. I do think that's actually how it works, but that's a whole
I think that's the Mandela
that's
effect, like fully
psychedelic journey.
explained. Like reality is completely changed, and there's just a very few of us that go like, "Wait a minute, that was different."
Yeah, I don't want to go into that right now.
No, let's not. You go
there's
ahead
there's
and
already
focus.
episodes of Delicious Divination. I think I've covered that, but it's worth talking about because I do think the evolution to Jupiter is important. Should boil that down into a savory nugget for y'all. So anyway, let me dive into this. I guess I hope it's a couple answers to not be out on a bummer. I mean, don't be intimidated by Arimon or Lucifer. You know, you're a human being. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. And enjoy this experience you have as much as possible, right?
well, yeah, we figured out. So here he goes. This is Rudolf Steiner. This is from, I think this is a year before he died, so 1924. So just after he saw Die Nigelungen. Um, all these things culminate in one question. Will the priests be capable of representing the spiritual world in its full reality rather than in the sentimental manner that has come into fashion over the last few centuries? So that as soon as one talks of the spirit, one feels disinclined to include the power of evil. The question is whether their energy, oops, the question is whether their energy will be sufficient to represent the reality of the spirit. This, dear friends, is absolutely the main thing. The main point is that we need the same attitude of soul for contemplating things such as the knowledge of karma, honestly contemplating earlier lives on earth, as we do for contemplating the transubstantiation when it is celebrated during the act of consecration of man. Such inner pictures must become real again for humanity. Only if they become real will it be possible, dear friends, to present what the apocalypsist is so deeply concerned about as a prospect for humanity, so that all these things may be guided in the right direction. The things we have been talking about here in connection with the book of Revelation are truths that one ought not to receive without uniting one's whole humanity with them, that one ought not to receive without regarding them as a kind of communion. That makes me think of psychedelics. uh, communion with sort of a reference McKenna would say, communion with the mushroom.
Yeah,
One
again, in a sense, yes and no, because you can get to these states without the psychedelics. It just takes a lot more dedication or
yes,
experience with the psychedelics, and finding a means of getting to that state without using them.
right, yeah. One can truly say a genuine ecclesia comprises the congregation as its outer reality, while the priests regard themselves as the group of beings within the ecclesia, through whose work the Spirit flows into humanity. For this, one does need, with the right understanding, the small tabernacle with the consecrated host, wherein the mystery of the transubstantiation is contained. Imagine you have the chalice in which the transubstantiation is accomplished. Through the transubstantiation, human beings seek the path to the Father, to that primeval creator power who has his being in it all. Many transcends. Through the transubstantiation, human beings seek the path to the Father, to that primeval creator power who has his being in it in all reality, and who cannot be found if you look one-sidedly for spirit alone or one-sidedly for matter alone, but who is only found when you directly discover the oneness of spirit with matter. Genuine understanding of the world is only present today when the transubstantiation is celebrated on the altar. Then indeed that holy event happens in which the Father is sought, and the Son shows the human being the way to the Father, the Son who is the one who mediates the path to the Spirit. So when he sees what is represented everywhere by the physical world, the human being can find in the transubstantiation the holy hidden spirit in the physical, the work of seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, whose hidden work appears as physical substance. If one wants to have this as spirit, one must tread the path to the Father. The path to the Father is shown by the Son, who then brings it about that the spirit appears out of the physical. The bread, so to speak, only of bread, but the same can be shown also for the wine. The bread is bread, but the Father can be sought in it. Christ shows the way. Through the transubstantiation, the bread surrounds itself with the aura. In the aura, the human being experiences the Spirit. The wine merely represents an amplification of what is in the bread. We can therefore say one's yearning for the Father lives in seeing the sense perceptible in which seraphim, cherubim, and thrones are hidden. Christ leads the human being to the path so that before him, Kyriotes, Dynamis, and Exousiae begin to work in the manner described yesterday, and he ascends to that realm where today he can only observe the spiritual world in its spirituality, where the Holy Spirit is right in the middle, angeloi, archangeloi, archai. This, dear friends, is told in the book of Revelation. To understand this, to conclude that it must be understood today, what does this mean? It means that someone who understands it will find his own understanding already set out in the book of Revelation. It is therefore possible to say, it is entirely up to you, dear friends, whether or not it is you about whom the book of Revelation has been speaking. If you take the impulses of the book of Revelation into your work as priests in a truly spiritual sense, then you are the ones, dear friends, about whom the book of Revelation has been speaking, as being the ones who come to turn aside the might of the beast, of the false prophet, of Satan. Then, wherever the chalice for the transubstantiation stands, you will always imagine beneath it the apocalyptic book. You will think to yourself, the chalice is standing upon the apocalyptic book, and as you think this, you will be able to say, therein lies my calling. What do we do above this enactment of my calling? Dear friends, I do not want to start a theoretical discussion during this conference, since you had the justifiable wish to hear something about the book of Revelation. I wanted to give you what I have given you, thus placing for you the book of Revelation beneath the chalice. It is to this that our considerations were intended to lead. Whatever the circumstances, you will succeed in achieving what is possible to achieve, dear friends. If you extend the ideals of your work as firmly as they can be extended, especially when you make our earnest considerations of the book of Revelation into the inmost impulse of your own work. Um, basically, wait, is it different? Okay, here it is. So, uh, the last thing he says, someone expressed gratitude for the conversation. He says, these words do not refer to anything external. What they express is an inner heartfelt vow. And if we can learn to place this into the light of rightly comprehended grace, then what is to happen will indeed happen, which is that the paths of gods and men must merge in our time. Michael will be the great mediator between the paths of gods and the paths of human beings. Let us pay heed to his work. Let us learn from the beginnings of his work in the past what is to be achieved in the future. Then shall we be permitted to look to the future not merely with well-meaning enthusiasm, but with courageous enthusiasm. Then shall we find our will conjoined more and more with the divine. Will that has wait, more conjoined more and more with the divine will that has guided humanity from the beginning. Then shall we feel our freedom join forces with the freedom of the gods. This is what we must feel. If we do, we shall be permitted to say each day when we have finished our daily work, hoping not for smaller, but for greater things for the following day. Perhaps the gods are looking down upon us and saying, yeah, so be it. Um, I love it. It's
It's
call
good stuff.
to work. Also, so real quick, in case you're wondering what the transubstantiation was, um, it is a change of one substance into another. Uh,
So,
well,
alchemy in a sense.
yeah, it's supposed to be. I can't read the writing is very well. Oh, cool. It has determined. Menschenhandlung. I messed that up, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I need to see that to read it.
Oh. Um, so yeah, pretty cool. Um, so through Michael, and through your will, you maintain freedom, balance out Ahriman through, through Christ. Pretty cool. Um,
That really neatly ties back again to us creating our reality through our imagination.
right. I feel like good pictures are developing slowly but surely for the world. Uh, it's, I feel like maybe if more people can kind of capture some of these ideas that he puts out there 100 years ago, then, probably I'm sure that's good.
I'm pretty sure the knowledge gets to people one way or the other.
Right. But
And if you interpret it in a very different way from what we're doing and you still get to the same results, it doesn't matter, does it?
hmm. Well, all right. So I think I'm gonna conclude with this one. Thanks a lot, Mike, for tuning in. Thank you, Anthony, as well. I appreciate all the viewers. Oh, I guess I could check for questions. I don't have any questions. But if you have them, drop them real quick. I'd be happy to try to answer. Very nice. Well,
All right, no questions.
not right now. We'll do try to do this again sometime. I have a couple ideas for some articles and or some subjects and
Yeah, cool.
uh do a
Just link them along, and I'll happily join. It's good stuff.
yeah, I highly recommend. The articles should be available in the descriptions, so you can go read them for yourself. Uh,
Best way.
recommended. And that's it. We'll do it again sometime soon. Thanks for tuning
Cool.
in. Peace out, everyone.